Excellent. All right. Welcome everyone to this introduction to the Power Platform. My name is Sancho Harker, and I develop solutions and Power Platform specifically solutions at a company called Pinnacle Group. And I am a super user on the Power Apps community forums. There's a small group of us who go well above and beyond helping everyone else to be nominated for super user. I'm also one of the Power Apps champs, and recently, beginning of April, I was made a Microsoft MVP, which is pretty cool. So I think we should start this off with a video that inspired me when I started doing the Power Platform about 1.5 years ago. So let's get on with that.
I don't just want to make a living, I want to make a difference. When I left school at 16, my dad was working in Heathrow at the time, and this opportunity came up as becoming a security officer. I thought, what a great opportunity, my dad used to take me here to watch seaplanes and everything, so why not work for a company or an airport like Heathrow? So I've been a security officer for 13 years. When I saw the amount of paper and time we were spending, I saw an app would be a great solution for these problems to be solved. About 1 year ago, I started learning about the Microsoft programs. I went home and I looked at that blog from Power Apps, and it said, this is how you can build an app. And I thought, why didn't no one know this? Because this could have so much potential to change so many things. We have saved 11,000 sheets of paper and saved around 288 hours of manual input data. Going from paper to digital has been amazing. It doesn't matter what your skill levels are like, anybody can build this app.
Him with his community of super users have created 17 Power Apps that are already being used across our airport, and this is just the tip of the iceberg.
My name is Sam Saini, and I'm a IT user adoption specialist at Heathrow. There's no limit of what you can create with new technology. I'll create a new career.
So these words coming from Satya Nadella himself, the CEO of Microsoft, shows how right from the top of the company down, they're looking at the Power Platform as the core of what they're looking at and what they're doing as a company. And this is going to be really great for people like us because we're going to be the ones using that platform. So when we talk about the platform, we have to talk about this digital feedback loop concept. Now, Microsoft has this most amazing and fantastic idea around the digital feedback loop, and that is that when they talk about the digital feedback loop, they're talking about these 4 pillars of a business: the people, the products, the operations, and the customers. So there's the people that make up the business, the products that the business sells, and the operations and customers that they have. All 4 of those pillars are constantly providing data, of which there's always an opportunity for all of us to then act on. So by better engaging the customers and transforming the products, we can then empower the people to do more and to transform those operations. So this as a whole is the business intelligence dilemma that Microsoft was trying to solve. So if we look at like what companies have issues with, the big problem is companies across the world all over have been collecting all this unstructured data. They've just got terabytes. I mean, on average, we're saying 100 terabytes of unstructured data per company. The number of companies that have that has doubled since 2016. And that means that they just have this data that's sitting there and is not doing anything when it could be working for them and making them more successful. So there's very few companies that actually take that data and analyze it in a way that is actionable for them. And when we look at the fact that across the world, we also have users who are using these devices that are multi-device. We've got people using mobiles, we've got people using the tablet, we've got people using computers. People don't want to just be stuck with using one kind of format. And more often than not, they'll be spending their time on a mobile device, whether it's an actual handheld or a tablet. And so when we look at creating these applications, creating applications historically in the traditional sense was a very expensive process and very, very time consuming. And your line of business decision makers are critical to that creation of apps. As they make the main decisions, they're in the actual place where all this data is being created. So when we look at transforming a business, we've got a few things that the companies are really thinking about. And one of them is that everyone's going digital. And so companies are trying to be agile and provide a really great customer service, but they also want to be able to do it quickly and with the least amount of cost. So what you have in terms of time to market is you have time and resource constraints, you have budget constraints. The problem is usually that the processes are done by paper, so it's not only a cost of paper, but it's the time taken to fill it in on paper and then transfer it to a digital medium, such as scanning or having someone write it up, and the fact that these processes become really, really complex. And what we always see is there's this friction between the IT side of the business and the business expectations. So you get business who wants to do certain things and IT who are sort of the gatekeepers, and then what happens is business will go out and find something that does what they want rather than engage with IT, and that's where this idea of shadow IT comes from. So what we really need to do is change that business expectation of what is expected from the business and from IT. Another problem is that there's this lack of insights. We've got all this data, but most of it has no means for us to integrate it with a business intelligence. It just sits there, it doesn't do anything, and there's this lack of tracking and measurement of performance. So we have all this data, but again, we can't action anything from it. And in terms of the total cost of ownership for these things, these processes, you have these legacy systems that require constant maintenance, and you're definitely going to be paying for that. And then you have the security and compliance needs, when what you really want to do is leverage the existing technology and get it to do it all for you. So in terms of line of business, more than half of these projects are funded by line of business, and almost all of them are influenced by your line of business people. So you got these organizations, traditionally when they develop custom software, this is sort of reserved for the privileged business processes, the ones that they see are critical because they know that developing this is going to cost them lots of money and take lots of time. So there's only so many problems that can be solved with a sort of pre-packaged product where the product, as you buy it, does exactly what you want. So again, you end up looking at developing externally, and that becomes costly and time consuming. And sometimes, there's just not an app for that. So what happens is you got your custom development and maintenance. It's time consuming, it's costly, and then everything else in the business that could be a digitized process or a digitized action is just left, and it's a missed opportunity to optimize. So luckily we have this great set of tools called the Microsoft Power Platform, and in its core we have Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agents. So Power Virtual Agents is the new kid in the family, and Microsoft's vision for this Power Platform was the recognition that the data is increasingly flowing out from everything, and there's this belief that if organizations harness their data, then they can act on it and gain value from it, where they're not. And those companies who are doing that will obviously outperform those who are not. And then they also recognize that there just aren't enough programmers out there, or data scientists, or tech professionals. Like, there's just not enough to go around. So their goal was to perform and create this platform that targets all these technology experts, but also targets all the millions of frontline workers who can see the opportunities every day to create something, but just aren't able to because it's just not easy. So they wanted to make that easy, and their guiding vision was this framework where you've got what they call the AAA loop, and that is for analysis, so analyze for the Power BI side. You've got your act, which is the performing of processes. So that's your Power Automate. And then you've got your, Act is your Power Apps. And then you've got Automate, which is Power Automate. And then Virtual Agents provides a sort of bot service that allows you to engage with people without actually having to use a human resource to do that. And all of this is all tied together as a massive platform. It's not just those 4 core principles, but it ties into this their flagship data service called the Common Data Service. It's got an AI builder. It ties into your existing Office 365, your Dynamics, your Azure, and you can also tie it into your existing business apps and data by using custom connectors or data connectors. So Power Apps is their low-code application development platform, and that allows anyone to build web and mobile-friendly applications that are cross-platform without writing any code. I mean, they call it a low-code, no-code platform. There's a no-code approach, and then there's just putting a little bit of extra code in to make it do what you want it to do. And that coding is very similar to the Excel kind of formulae. And it has access to over 250 different connectors. So let me just go a bit more into my favorite part of the Power Platform, which is Power Apps. You couldn't tell by the t-shirt though. And Power Apps, okay, so it's this low-code approach. What they wanted to do was bring like the idea of PowerPoint, so being able to drag and drop items into an app and build it with the formulae that are similar to Excel. So it's a structure that people know and are comfortable with. And then it has access to over 250 or 260 different pre-built connectors and custom connectors. So you're easily able to build these apps and connect them in with all your data. And it's got streamlined or very easy access to the Office 365, Azure, and Dynamics pieces, and the integration between Microsoft Power Automate and Microsoft Power BI is really simple. So it comes with a strong governance and security, and also has this pro dev extensibility, whereby your existing developers who have all those coding skills can actually write components for your apps. So if you want to take them the next level up, you can even get someone to help you out with that. So the next instrument in this symphony of the Power Platform is Power Automate, and this allows you to take your existing processes, your actions, and digitize them. So if there's ever a case where someone does something repeatedly, almost machine-like, you're definitely going to find a way to do that in Power Automate without having to do that in person. So that then frees up that person's time to actually do some more important work than the sort of mundane admin stuff. And it has access to the same pre-built custom connectors. So again, over 250, 260 connectors that you can get your data from and connect to. So it could be things like Twitter or Office 365 or your emails or SharePoint or SQL. There's a huge ream of connectors available to you. And it also comes packaged with that enterprise governance and security. It's controlled by this sort of single identity platform. You have to log in with Office 365 to get access to these things. So it's already got the same permissions set in that your Office 365 account has. So that makes things a lot easier in terms of the governance and security side. And equally, it has this pro dev extensibility where your Azure professionals and coders can actually create you custom bits of logic that you can drag in. Now, the same way that Power Apps had that sort of PowerPoint style drag and drop, Power Automate has the same sort of thing. You can drag and drop functions. So for example, we can see in that image there, it's got one function which is get my profile, and then another one which is get that person's manager, and then just start an approval. And normally to do that in coding, you'd have massive amounts of code that you have to work out and test, whereas they're providing this as an out-of-the-box function. And the next instrument in this symphony of Power Platform is the Power BI tool, and that is, once you've got all this data, you're using Power Apps, you've connected your data to Power Apps, you've connected it to Power Automate, and then you've got all this data building, or maybe you've got a historic backlog of data. What you can then do is find a way to display it in a meaningful way that allows you to action it. So you gain value from that data, where before it was just sitting there. So again, you can connect to pretty much any data source you can find on the web. And it already has existing connections and directly integrates with Power Apps, Microsoft Teams, your Office 365, Dynamics, Azure. You can leverage like Azure data services like Data Lake and SQL and Data Warehouse to optimize analysis of your big data, or just to, if you're doing it on a small scale, you want to just focus on your Excel sheets or your SharePoint lists. You can just pull those directly into Power BI and have it start doing analysis. And it's got that same PowerPoint-like drag and drop process where you're just able to drag in items, and you drag in a data source, or if you want to change a data source in an object, you just drag it in from the list. And that makes things really easy and really quick. So you can either start from a template, or you can run and work with the report live as you're building it. Now, you can't speak about the Power Platform without talking about the Common Data Service. Yes, you do need a license to access the Common Data Service, but it's more than just a data storage mechanism. You can't compare SharePoint with the Common Data Service, because the Common Data Service, if you look at the bottom of that image, SharePoint's just storage. It's nothing more than that storage mechanism, whereas that service that they're providing is way more than that. You've got metadata that has modeling and existing objects. You've got a logic tier that allows you to set up business rules and field level authorization and security, so you can really get down to the nitty-gritty details of security. And then you've got this integration tier, which allows it all to integrate with other services like SQL Server reporting services, or maybe some kind of data export or syncing between other data sources. So you've got a quick way to store and save your data with the Common Data Service. So it is definitely something you want to look at from an organizational point of view. Now, along with all of this, you've also got this AI builder that comes with the licensed Power Apps, and that is a low-code method for you to build AIs. I'm not talking like the kind of Skynet destroy all humans AIs. It's a machine that can then interpret your data. So, for example, if you start throwing, for example, a bunch of images at it, and you want it to identify health and safety hazards, such as a smoldering cigarette butt, you can actually train that object detection to detect that on images. And then every time someone takes photos, you can have it feed into here and tell you if there's a risk of a fire at that point that they're taking the image. So this is really, really powerful and can help your business a lot. Now, in terms of data connectors, what I spoke about before, we have this built-in connectivity, as I said before, with all of it to over 260 cloud services and files, databases, web APIs. I mean, I'm sure you recognize some of the icons on this list of data connectors, and this is only a short list. The actual list is way more extensive, but everything that you create in Office 365 is already accessible, and you can then leverage like your Azure environments and like Logic Apps or APIs or cognitive services or Cosmos, and connect to that very easily from all the different parts of the platform. You can also build and create your own custom connectors and on-premise data sources. So for example, recently I built a custom connector that connects to the Office 365 audit logs and tells me when someone has viewed a SharePoint site, so that I can then track activity and against certain sites. So now, who's building all these solutions? You got sort of your two main categories and then everyone else. You got your citizen developers who are the sort of low barrier of entry for app development. That could be anyone from your concierge to your finance person to your HR person. Everyone within the business is in this low, like entry level tier of citizen development, because the Power Platform enables you to do and create things without having this existing IT or programming knowledge. So what you have is you generally have a bunch of power users in each business that will start picking up the platform and then really just start pushing the limits of it. And often, yeah, it'll be with this IT oversight or in some kind of test sandbox environment. But then what you have on top of that is your pro dev or IT productivity people. So you've got your pro existing developers who want to make apps faster. They know how long it takes them to make apps. Sometimes it's 3 months to 12 months. I mean, for a standard mobile app, we're looking at minimum 3 months, probably 12 months. Whereas with the Power Platform and Power Apps, you can actually build, and I've built apps in a day, just one day, and the app is ready, and then people start testing it. So it massively reduces this time to develop and deploy items. And the third category, of course, is everyone, because I really do believe I can teach and everyone can learn how to do these kinds of things. I have taught many people how to do this, and I'm telling you, everyone can do this. So as a 3-point plan, I would say educate yourself, have a point of view about how you want things done, and then build a plan and get some sponsorship for it from the business. Get them invested in trying to create this citizen developer in revolution, because the low code revolution is real. It's here, and every organization and industry is unique and needs to apply it differently. There is no single playbook that will tell you how to do the creation of this revolution within your company. It'll be different for everyone. And from Microsoft's point of view, the pro dev and IT productivity with Power Apps is real. The combination of them together is getting lots of converts, and they're seeing more and more and more apps. Last year, June, we had in the community, we had over 2.5 million Power App developers, and that was almost a year ago. So that number has massively grown since then. So to get value from the platform, you need to embrace both the citizen developer and the pro dev, but you can get away with just using the citizen developer side of things. Each of us can build an app. We all have an idea for an app, but we struggle to create it. So where do you get started with all of this? Start small. You have to find something simple, like some paper forms that you're using, and turn those into Power Apps. That's going to be your quick wins. You're going to be able to do those in incredibly short amounts of time. You just set up a small data source with all the fields that you would normally fill in inside that form, and then put a Power App on the front of it, and instantly it is digital. And then you want to look at migrating your Excel macros or info path forms to Power Automate, but also look at simple processes that are being done manually by people that could be automated really easy. So if, for example, if someone's sending an email to a specific address whenever a certain type of email comes in or a certain type of form is received, that's a perfect candidate for Power Automate, because you can just tell it, when I receive a form, email it off to this address, and it will do it in like 3 steps. And then you want to create your Power BIs to highlight that data that's being created. So find within your company, find your citizen developers and build this community. All of you can learn together. No one can know everything. I certainly don't know everything, and I constantly look on the Power Apps community forums and ask people that I know for help about Power Apps, because the Power Platform is such a wide platform and covers so many things that not everyone can know it. So I do recommend learning together and setting up maybe a Teams group or a Yammer group, just to get everyone talking about it and bouncing ideas off each other. And then on social media, there's a big social media community for the Power Platform. If you look on Twitter, for example, you can follow the hashtag Power Addicts or hashtag Power Apps or hashtag Power Automate. And these people constantly post and come up with these great ideas and share it with people. I regularly share content and people and ideas with people on Twitter just to help everyone out, because I feel like we should all share that knowledge. And then when you're building these things, you really want to quantify and measure the success of it. So the easy way to do that is, did it save time? How much time did it save? And how much time did it save per year? How much money did it save? If we're no longer having to spend money on paper, that's a saved paper and money cost. So you can work it out, how many trees did I save in terms of paper per year, and how much money am I saving per year? So for example, I did a health and safety audit process recently that over a year saves 6,000 pages of paper and over 3,300 hours of staff time is just gone. No longer need to do that. So those people are now able to spend all that time during the year focusing on key important focuses rather than this administration work they were doing before. So in terms of the learning, sharing is caring. Get out there, spread the word. You've got all these workshops, you've got hackathons, you've got lots of tech talks, and especially if you want to look on YouTube, people like Shane Young, Daniel Christian, they have amazing resources that can show you how to do from the beginning all the way up to the complex stuff. In your companies or amongst your friends or in your user groups, have show and tells. Like, be proud of what you've created and show everyone, because there's more than likely someone out there who didn't know what that was that you were creating and is just going to be like, wow, that's amazing. So share your success stories about that as well. And then champion a community. You want to create an internal community within your company of champions, of people who are passionate about this, and either make a Yammer or a Teams channel, or maybe have an internal portal or like a SharePoint site, maybe send out newsletters, and definitely highlight individuals. If someone is doing an amazing thing with the Power Platform, tell everyone, because that's the best way to spread it, is because then other people are going to be like, wow, I didn't know I could do that. I'm going to give that a try. And then again, just share that knowledge. Either have internal training resources or learning tracks that have different levels, so people can either start a beginner and maybe when they're more comfortable do intermediate, and then have regular drop-in sessions. So if you're the expert in your company, allow people to come just drop in and talk to you and discuss their problems with you. Because I found one of the easiest ways to get over a problem is to have another set of eyes on it, and just they'll probably see something that you don't. So within your company, you want to grow your footprint. You want to increase this adoption of the platform via training. You want to enhance the process and design mechanism, and you want to develop these cross-platform mobile apps. Because when you develop a Power App, it doesn't matter what platform you're using. You can use it on Android, you can use it on iOS, you can use it on a PC, on a tablet, on a mobile. There's no platform that this currently does not work on. So you want to then also try put some governance in place about your applications. Maybe get people every few months to republish those apps to get the newest features going. And certainly for your most viral apps, you want to sort of keep track of who's accessing it and when. And you can do that from the admin portal. And then you can customize your existing first or third party apps and recreate them within the Power Platform. Because if you don't need to pay for them anymore, then that's money saved already. If you can recreate the whole thing in the Power Platform, then do it. And definitely you want to be digitizing this paper or siloed processes. So these processes where someone has to be directly involved and does the same thing every single time, or maybe it's a stack of sheets that they have to fill out, and then someone else has to type all of those out. And that is definitely going to be a perfect example of what you want to pull out with the Power Platform. And you want to modernize your existing old apps. If you've got these old apps that are barely clunking along on what they were built with 10 years ago, if you can modernize them and bring them into the Power Platform, then do it. So I'm just going to do a demo now, and we're going to go ahead and do exactly what I said. So let's jump right in. So I've got my Office portal here. Now, if you don't see Power Apps or Power Automate or Power BI in here, you can click All Apps, and you'll get your full list of apps that you have access to. If your company hasn't enabled Power Apps or Power Automate or Power BI, you maybe want to speak to your IT administrators and discuss with them about how getting these, because most of these come free with the standard Office licenses. So this is not like they're going to have to go out and purchase massive amounts of anything to get this running. So if we open up Power Apps, if we go to the SharePoint site, I've got this SharePoint site, for example. I've got this list where I've put in all sorts of data. It's just, got some names, some comments, what age, what day did they attend, were they happy or not, and what's the one thing they couldn't live without. And then if I want to now create a Power App from this piece of data, I can either go Power Apps, create an app, or from Power Apps, I can go create and choose SharePoint as to start from data. So it can pick up based on different data sources how it should build an app. So if I choose SharePoint, it's going to ask me to connect to a SharePoint site. It'll show me a recent list of sites I've been on. And I'll choose business data and choose this list. And then you hit connect. And in the background, Power Apps goes and builds this for you. Like, it's truly amazing. They will build a 3-form app just from detecting the data itself. So right now, I haven't had to build anything. If I go and run this app works. I can click in here and view an item. If I want to, I can edit it using that edit icon there. It's detected the format of the types of data I used. So for example, I put date attended. It knows that's a date. So it's automatically got a date picker here. So if I want to change the date that that person attended, I just click in and do it. And whether or not they were happy, it knows that I put that as a yes or no. So it goes either yes or no, on or off. And for the things that someone couldn't live without, I made that a choice. So that choice is then reflected here. I can choose what item I think that that person couldn't live without, even though they filled it out themselves. And then age is a number. So if I try enter in another character, it automatically clears that out because that field is now set to only accept numbers. So let's go back. It also has a functionality for deleting. It has a functionality for viewing. So effectively, we've got a way to manage this data source already. We don't need to be manually adding things in there. If I want to make a new row, so let me jump back to that data source. So the last row on here is this mic flare. If I go back and create a new item, I can go comments. This is amazing. And date attended, let's make it today. And are we happy? Yes, we're happy. And things we couldn't live without, happiness. And age, let's make it, I'll just take a wild guess, 25. And we hit submit. And in this list, I can already search now for Shadrach, and there he is. And I can view this item and delete it or edit it. And if I go back to my data source and refresh it, we can see that it's added in that new row there. So without doing any code at all, I was able to create this app that then does that automatically. So that's just amazing. Obviously, we can build on that. We can make it do other things. So I want to say, okay, maybe when I do this, I want this to be able to highlight. So I'm going to insert a And this is another thing, the inserting of controls is really easy. So you've got this massive list of controls and cool little tools you can add in. So I'm going to add in a label and make it the whole size. And I want the text to be blank, but I want the color that when it hovers to be, let's go with a slight fade. So I'm going to go, this is the RGBA, which is red, green, blue, and alpha for a slight black fade. So I'm going to do maybe 20% of that. And now if I run this again and clear that, there we go. So now when I hover over that, we've got this fade. Now I want to make it even more impactful. So what I can do is in the settings for this, we've got a display and a transition. So transition shows how it's going to move when you move between the data, and I want it to be a pop. Now pop, I'll show you what that means now as we go over every item, it pops it out towards you, so you can see which one you have highlighted. So let's put that down. So back. Okay, so that's Power Apps. Power Apps, really easy. You just put things in. There's loads of stuff to read about it online. I've got links for that later. I'll cover that in a bit. But now, okay, we've done the Power App. Now we've got to Power Automate. And I want that every time a new item is created, I get sent an email, or my boss gets sent an email. So I can then go and create a flow. Now you've got loads of templates that will do that, exactly that for you. They will say, okay, if, there we go, there's one, send a customized email when a new file is added. But maybe what I'm looking for is when an item is added, and then you've got all these different lists of templates that will do something after an item is added to SharePoint. So this one, for example, email notification after approval, or this one, add an event when an item is added. So you can use these templates to, let's say when an item is added, email. So what I really want is to have something like this where an approval is added. So let's go and use that template and continue. Now it's already built out all this stuff for me. So I'm going to, when a new item is created, so the site that it was created at was this business data site, and the list name was doing a heckin' business. And now it'll know, I don't want the approval, I just want the notification. So I'm just going to delete that. And I just want this send email, so I can literally just drag that up to the top here and get rid of this. So all I want is every time I create something, then a specific email address is added. So if you notice before there, we had created by email. So that means that every time someone creates something, it would be sending an email to the creator saying, this item was created, here's the details. Now what I want is a specific address. So I'm going to put test at iammancat.dev. And what I want is subject to be new item added for, because our title field is the person's name. So when you get the email, it'll say new item added for Shadrach or for whoever. And in the body, let's blank out that body. So in the body, we can do details of item. And then you've got this nice drop-down list of things you can add. So if I want to add age, I can put age is, and then just click that age, and it inserts it right there for us. And comment was, and put the comments there, and maybe date of attendance and get to date attended. And then thanks. So now I can save that. And if I go back to Power Apps and let's create a new item, call it Sancho Harker. This is automated. And date of attendance, let's put it last week sometime. And am I happy? Yes. And things I couldn't live without, sleep. And I create this new item. Now, if I go through to my Power Automate and so the thing with Power Automate is between you creating the item and it picking up that you've created the item, there is a small gap. Now, I just heard my email ding go through, so I'm sure if we refresh this, yeah, there we can see it picked up, and we can go in and view it. It picked up that a new item was created with all these details, so you can view exactly what it's been looking at, and then it sent an email. So if I now jump over to my email, I can see that I received an email saying a new item was added for Sancho, age is 34, comment was this, and date of attendance was that. So it was literally that easy to get a notification about a new item being added to a data source. I mean, I just did this in a few seconds. Like the difference between that and traditional coding is just reams apart. You can't compare the two. So now, okay, I've built the app. I've got the automation that does things whenever I do something to that. Now what I want to do is find a nice way to display it. So I can open up Power BI, and I can either do this from the web, but you get the better experience if once you've loaded into the web, you use that download icon there and get Power BI Desktop. So if I open up Power BI Desktop, okay, so I am going to start by going get data. And when I go get data or create new, this will give me a list of data sources that I can then pull data from. And the list is enormous. I mean, for example, I don't want a SharePoint folder. I used a SharePoint list, but it's so far down. There are infinite amounts of data that you can get for this. So what I really want to do is search for SharePoint. And it shows me all the ones that are SharePoint. So I want SharePoint online list. And then it's going to ask me for the site URL. So that's in the address bar, that's the address of the site. So in my example, it is imancat.dev.sharepoint.com/site/business data. So we go in, we hit OK, and it'll try use your default Office 365 permissions. If it can't, then it'll ask you to enter in some user details, in which case you can just choose either Windows or other authentications. Now, it's got this massive list of data sources in that business data site, and the one I'm looking for is called Doing a Heckin' Business. Now, it'll give me a preview of some of the rows, and I can see there that it's got the comments, it's got the date attended, it's got whether they're happy, it's got all the details that I was filling into that list. So I can load that. And it'll pull all that data in from the data source and make it into a nice model for us. And now on the right here, we can see all these different types of fields that I created, like age or comments, are available there. So for example, if I just tick age, it'll pop age as a field there, but now that's only popped it as a table. What I want to do is show that as a pie graph. I want a pie graph of all the different ages. Now, why is there no graph? Because if you look on the right there, where it says legend, I've got no values. So I can just drag age to values, and there we go. So we've got 3 people who are age 55, we've got 2 people who are age 22, and so on and so on. Now, we can take that a bit further and do some other bits. So let's for example, we had that list of whether they're happy or not. So let's pull that one in. Okay, we've got happy or not, true or false. That's not very useful, but we can make it useful very easily. So for example, if we pull this into a stacked column chart like it says there, this will give us some basic info, but all we've got right now is happy along the x-axis. What we really want is happy to be in the value. So I can just drag that from there to value. Okay, we've got a count of how many happies there are. That's not very useful either. So what we really want to do is get some dates. And what we can do is, if we look at happy and click on it once, we get to this column tools option, and we can see the data type here is listed as text, whereas actually that's a yes, no. So that's a true or false value. So I can convert that. And then if I want to, along my x-axis, I want to know what date they were happy or sad on. So I'm going to try put date attended onto the axis. Now, unfortunately, as you can see, that's put every single date. So we're just getting the same value for each one. And the reason being is that by default, it's detected that, if I click on that, as a text value. But we can just change from the drop down, and that is actually a date. So we convert it, and it'll warn us that there, if we have other data in there, it might be affected, but I know that those are all dates, so that shouldn't be an issue. Okay, we're getting there. We've got some degree of date now, but it's not good enough. I want better than that. So if we expand this date attendant down and expand their date hierarchy, we can see we've got year, quarter, month, or day. So I'm going to drag month into that axis, and there we go. Now we have how many happy or sads there were in each month. But again, that's not very useful, but we can extend that even further. We can take that happy value. Right now, it's just counting them. What we want to do is give a legend, an example of whether it's yes or no. So we can drag that happy into the legend, and there, it'll now split it for us as false or true. So we can see in the months of June and July, there was this overwhelming number of people that were not happy. So we can now investigate other things to see what were the causes, because now we've got actionable data. We know in June and July, there were a lot of people who were unhappy. And of those people, you can see I clicked in there. It now highlights across my other charts who those people were. So for example, we can see the majority of them were age 55. So there's something to do maybe with age and happiness during that particular month. So we can then expand further. So now if I pull in that other piece of data we had that was useful, which was what couldn't they live without? Again, it starts off as a simple table, but we can convert that. So let's convert that to a sideways stacked chart. Now again, we know that the axis is not where we want that data to be. We want more than that. So we move that to the value. Now we know, okay, we got a count of them. Again, we can filter that further. We can go and give it a legend of the people and the things that they wanted. Let's take what couldn't they live without and put it on the axis. There we go. Now we can see the main thing people can't live without is food, which makes complete sense. And if we want to then take it even further, we can take the age and put that into the legend category. And now we can see of the people that require and can't live without these certain things, there are definite age categories where this applies to. And so now if we cross highlight again from June, we can see that in June, people age 55 and older have an issue potentially with food, because that is the thing they can't live without at this time when they are unhappy. So we've now been able to, from this list that was just a SharePoint list, just a static piece of data, we've now effectively narrowed down and actioned some data. We know that we now need to look at the issue with people age 55 and older who have problems with potentially getting food during June. So, and that I just did that in a few clicks. It's just drag and drop and click across. So that is really, really amazing that you can do that so quickly. So these three core apps, you've got Power Apps, you've got Power Automate and Power BI, they allow you to do amazing things, honestly amazing. And how are we doing for time? Yeah, we've got another 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do now is demo some other things that I've built. So for example, let's go back to Power Apps. So Power Apps allows you to create and import other people's apps as well. So if I go to, let's get create.powerapps.com. Now you can get there another way. You can open up Power Apps, create a new item, and then close it, and you'll get this screen. But the easiest way is just to go to create.powerapps.com. Now, I can then open and browse for a file. So I'm going to browse to my downloads and pull in this branding template. So one of the things I would suggest all of you do is look at the Power Apps community forums. Users like myself create and post for free for you to use all sorts of different apps. Because what we really want is people to take our apps and build on top of them and make even more amazing things. So I built this app, and the idea was I wanted people to be able to create items really easily that automatically have contrast mode and low vision and accessibility. So for example, if I create a new screen in this and insert a button, that button looks fine, but I can actually go into this theme palette and jump to a different theme, and it automatically change. So that's really cool. And it applies for everything else in here. And I've got some examples of those. Let's get to, this is a gallery, what we're seeing here. And that is a very simple way of displaying data. Now, what I wanted to do is give everyone else in the community a better way to display that. So I created this, where this is the same gallery, just with different highlights enabled and different views. So I wanted people to be able to make these cool things on top of what I've already built. And let's open up another. I have a friend called Matthew Devaney, and he created, honestly, the most amazing thing I have ever seen. He took Power Apps and actually made a game that I loved as a child in Power Apps, and it blows my mind. So if I open this up, he created the game Pipe Dream in Power Apps. This is a Power App that I'm running right now, and we can actually play a full-on game using Power Apps. And the idea that you can do something like this so fantastic just from a Power App, it just really highlights that the only limit to what you can create with a Power App is limited by your imagination. If you can think of it, you can build it. Okay, let's go back to slides. So, got a list of resources here for you. there's a link to my branding template, so you can download that, use that. It'll enable you to build apps so much faster than the Power Platform already allows you to do. There's this random theme generator, so if you can't pick out any good ideas for colors for your apps, use this. You just hit a button and it will generate a nice theme for you of 3 or 4 different colors. You've got this accessibility checker for the WCAG. WCAG is a accessibility norm where things have to have a certain contrast. So you can't have a white text on a white background, and this thing will warn you if those aren't matching. And then a color blindness simulator where you can literally copy paste and open things in that. So if I open that up, bit.ly color blindness. This allows you to simulate what people with color blindness experience when they see whatever your app is. So you can, for example, I go back to my app here that we built. If I take a screenshot of that and copy to the clipboard, and I can just paste that in here, and then I can view how people with different levels of color blindness will see your app. So this is obviously a good example because it's white on black, so it's going to be high contrast automatically. But if you're, for example, using a red font on a green background, that's not going to be accessible because red-green color blindness is very, very common. So those two will look the same to that person, and they won't be able to use your app then. So this is really useful for making sure that your app is always accessible. And then in terms of learning resources, now this is the most important one, aka.ms/Power Platform resources. They are reams of resources from beginner to intermediate to expert to administrator. And I really do suggest you go and take a look at that because you will find so much useful information there. And then my takeaway point from all of this is to go out and create your own music. You know, create an app, create a process, come up with a great idea that will improve either your company or even your personal life. If you can create an app, I've seen people who've created apps that remind them to do exercise and keep track of their exercise routines. And I've seen ones where people have done reminders for and schedules for taking their pills if they have medication to take. So just go out there and enjoy the platform. It's really such an easy way to get value from data and to get value from these tools. Like I showed you just now, in just a few short minutes, I was able to take data, turn it into an app, automate a notification from it, and then display it to gain valuable information from that data and an actionable piece of information. So yeah, have fun with it. Shadrach, do you want to continue on from here, or does anyone have any questions they want to ask?
Sancho, we have a question at the chat area.
Okay, I'm not a team member, so I can't see the chat. So what's the question?
After creating an app using Power Apps, how do you deploy the app?
Okay, that's a good question. Let me jump back in there. So if I go back to this app, when I create this, I can just hit File, Save, give it a name, like Test App for Awesomeness. And then I can go to the settings. Let's call that test app and give it a new background and an icon. And let me just minimize that. And then I can save that. And then when you save it, you save a recent version, and you can, that's now exists in your default tenant, that environment that exists in Power Apps in your company. And then if you hit share, it'll open up the list of apps, and you can find, by just searching that person's name, the next person you want to share it with. And if you, for example, want to share it to everyone in the company, you can start typing everyone, and there's this one group called everyone in, and then your company name, and you click that and it will share it with everyone inside the company. And as long as they have a license, like an Office 365 license, so they've got their normal emails and Excel and all that, most of those licenses come with Power Apps out the box. So once you share it with them, they automatically have access and can open it either from Power Apps by going to, if I go to apps here, from this list of apps, or they can open up their mobile. You can go to the Play Store, download Power Apps, and then log in with your work account or your email account, and it'll list all the apps that you have access to. So that's literally how easy it is to share and publish. And if I, for example, I come back in here and make an edit, so I make that half size, and I save that. So while you're doing testing and editing, you can save as many times as you want, and it won't affect the version that's running live. So what you can do then is, once you're ready to go live, you hit publish, and that will then overwrite the live version with the version you've been editing. I hope that answers the question.
So there is also another question from Kenny IL Tribe. It says, so the app can only be accessed from Power Apps.
Yes, but because Power Apps is multi-platform, you can get the Power Apps app on Android, iOS, PC, tablet. It's available on every device, so it's not dependent on whether you have an Android or an iOS or a PC. Once you publish it to Power Apps, that Power Apps container can be run on any of these other devices.
Yeah, I guess all the questions have been answered. Do we have any other question from the audience? Any other question? Oh yes, we have another question.
I am Zablon Rioba.
Hey, Zablon.
I am I'm more of the deep learning developer and
Yeah.
machine learning. So I was asking, can I integrate my models with Power App?
Yeah, like I say, all of the apps, you can create custom connectors that connect to any other platform. So there's on learn.microsoft.com, you can actually, and on docs.microsoft.com, they have all the documentation that shows you how to connect your existing apps to other things that you may have created. So if you've done some ML or whatever in another platform, you can, most times you can actually find a connector for that in the list of connectors that they provide. And if you can't, you can just write one yourself.
Okay, my second question is, let's say I'm not, let's say, employed to any company and I've developed an app. How is it, can I take it to deployment or to, let's say, for a certain company to use it? Well, I'm not included in the company.
Well, if you want to develop for another company, there's two ways to do that. The first way is you get a guest account on their tenant, or the second way, which is the preferable way for me, is you develop it And what you can do, let me go back to sharing. What you can do when you hit save as here, you can save it locally. So you can actually download the actual app file and then send that across to your company that you're developing for. Or alternatively, you can actually export the whole solution. So if you create, for example, an app that's tied to a flow, that's tied to you can actually, if I go to my list of apps here and select one of these, I can actually export the package, and it will find everything that's attached to that and export it as a single item that they can then import by using create and going, so if I go to, I can actually open and import solutions that someone else has exported into my tenant. And then all I need to do is change the data source that's being used, because it might be that you used in your tenant, you used some access or some databases that you had access to, but they need to point it to a different source. They can do that during the import process.
Okay, thank you. So, my last question, can one create apps and let's say you like a freelancer, you just create apps and then you like selling them as a business or something? Can that work?
I think the preferred, like the method most people do, so I know quite a few contractors who do this. They create the app themselves and then will get involved in the publishing of it on the client's tenant. So either they get an account to use temporarily on the client's tenant, or they send through guidance on how to publish that within their tenant. So it's not like you got to think of it differently from traditional app dev, where you hold the source code as like this imperative. When you build an app, you're sharing it with them, and then you would get paid for the time you spent building that, as well as any further edits on it. But it's not that you would push it out into a completely siloed piece of code. So you don't push out to an executable or a DLL. It's just a container that they then import.
Okay, thank you.
And also we have another question. Can the app be linked to a real-time database, DB?
Yeah. So what you can do is, there's one of the controls in the app is called a timer, and you can actually just have that timer run every few seconds, and every time it finishes its cycle, it refreshes the data source. So you can do that, and then on the Power BI side especially, you can have truly live data come in, where as soon as an item is pushed, the data source automatically refreshes itself in the dashboard. And there's loads of if you look online and on the Power BI blogs, there's loads of information of how to set that up.
There is no any other question.
Okay. Thanks so much, everyone, for your time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, it's a pleasure. If you need me again, just give me a shout. I'm happy to explain.